Hey YouTube, it's Marita, and welcome to another edition of the Nurse Lounge. And in this edition, we're going to talk about the ADN versus the BSN. So, which one is better? Would you want to know what I think about that? If you want to know, stay tuned.
Moving on is clearly overdue. Long flights, whipping like an NFL view. I don't really need somebody new. Keep moving up and then it come to you. Everybody needs a hobby, boo. Don't let it just make one out of you. Can't nobody mend your heart for you. There ain't nothing like super glue. Just keep moving. Hot loose ends, you choose it. Keep moving, keep moving. Hot loose ends, you choose it. Keep going. Let it loose, let it go and away. Let it loose, let it go and away. Let it loose, let it go and away. You get it all, show to watch your way. Elbow, wrist, touch your heart, blow a kiss.
And I'm back. So, there's always been this big debate about which degree is better, the ADN versus the BSN. And so they both have their value. So I wouldn't say one degree is better than the other. But as a nurse educator, and that's what I am, I'm a nurse educator and I still work in the hospital, but I am a nurse educator. I happen to have worked both sides in terms of working with the ADN students and working with the BSN students. And so this is my basic take on all of that. When I went to nursing school back in 2002, we were taught that the BSN students were to go into management and that the ASN or ADN students did not go into management. Those are the two, that is the difference between the two degrees in terms of scope of practice. Otherwise, everything's the exact same. So in terms of pay, most places, the ADN and the BSN make the same amount of money. In terms of what you can do in terms of specialty areas, there's not a difference in specialty areas in which an ADN nurse can do versus a BSN nurse can do. When it comes to management, the intent, like I was saying, the intent was for the BSN to go on into management positions, and the ADN could not because they didn't have the leadership skills, not skills, take that back, not skills. They didn't have the leadership classes that we have in the BSN program. Now, with that being said, I am a BSN graduate. I never had an ADN. So I did take leadership classes. It was required as part of our program. And again, that is what makes you supposedly better suit for management positions. Again, I'm simply stating the facts. The BSN was geared towards going to management, whereas the ASN or ADN, depending on what you all call it in your state, is geared towards being the nurse on the floor or wherever you happen to work. And then eventually they would go back to school, which most people do. And then they had the opportunity to go into management. Now, that was the intent. What is the reality? The reality is this. You do have ASN or ADN prepared nurses in management positions. So that doesn't mean you can't be. I'm just saying that was the intent of the BSN versus the ADN. So I've seen plenty of people who have associate degrees and they are in management positions in nursing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure we kind of dispel the myth as to why that is. So again, no money differences, no real scope of practice differences outside of management. You can practice anywhere that a BSN can practice. Now, let me tell you this. Most facilities, not most, I take that back. A lot of hospitals, facilities are moving towards magnet status. Basically, they'll get more money back in reimbursement and things like that. So they want magnet status. To be magnet status, that means they have to have, typically, baccalaureate prepared nurses. So what does that mean for the ADN nurses? You can get a job still anywhere, but if you get a job at a magnet status or a hospital who's trying to obtain magnet status, they may require you to go back to school. And if you don't have that degree within so many years, you will be terminated. So, prime example, I have a friend who is contemplating starting a job at this new facility. And that hospital is a magnet status hospital. They are currently in school at the moment to get their BSN. And that was brought up in the interview that, I'm already in the program. This is how long I have. And they said that was great because that is what they're looking for. So they're already an ASN prepared nurse or ADN prepared nurse. They are a registered nurse, but they're currently in school for their RN to BSN. And again, that was criteria that they want to make sure that she had or is obtaining to maintain her position at this new facility if she chooses to keep that job. So again, keep that in mind as well. I'm not saying anything's wrong with the ADN, but if you want to move up, if you want to advance, a lot of times you're going to be required to move into that next level of education. And that's not just true for the BSN. Nowadays, they're wanting you to go beyond that and get the MSN. And then even beyond that and get your terminal degree in nursing. So depending on where you are, even for people who are at the master's level, which that's where I'm at now, I'm at the master's level. And to be an educator at most facilities or institutions of nursing, schools of nursing, they are pushing for you to have a doctoral degree. So basically, if you're wanting to get more, if you're wanting to have more options, then you will need higher levels of education, unless you know someone. And that's true with any aspect of life. If you know someone, there's a lot of things you can do that everybody else can't do without the credentials that are needed. But if you're like the rest of us who don't know anybody, you better go get your education, because that's where it's going to be in regards to if you want to have more options. Now, I'm not saying that you won't have options with a ADN degree. You will. You'll have options. But I'm saying the more education you have, typically, there may be an exception. If you're the exception, leave a comment below and let me know what your exception is. But for the most part, I'm saying that if you want to have more options, you need to have either more experience, more education, or both. And that's just kind of how it is. More experience. So if you have an ADN, but you done worked everywhere, you did corrections, you did long-term health, you have did geriatrics, you have did OB, you have did med surg, pediatrics, you've been a wound care nurse, you done did it all. You're the exception. You're going to get a job pretty much anywhere that you want to get, and you probably can get into management without a problem. However, for the rest of us, we actually have to have either the experience and or education in order to move forward. So again, I'm not trying to knock one or the other. I'm just simply saying this is kind of what the intent was for that degree. If you have an ADN, that is wonderful. If that's as far as you want to go, that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a BSN, that's wonderful as well. And if that's as far as you want to go, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to achieve more, then you have to either get experience or you're going to have to go get some education. So I took a few notes. Let me make sure I covered everything. I did say typically it's the same pay. And I did say that typically if the hospital's trying to achieve magnet status and you were hired with an associate degree, they are going to try to push for you to get that bachelor's degree within so many years. So if you feel like that's not what you want, unfortunately, some of these hospitals have forced nurses to retire. I know a lot of nurses who have an associate's degree and they are 35 years into the game and they're like, I'm not going back to school. And I can't say I blame them. So they either retire or they quit. It's up to them, or usually one or the other, usually retire or quit. Or when I say quit, they quit and go do something else in which they don't have to have that degree. I have no ill feeling towards anyone who doesn't want to go any further than where they are. We all have our reasons as to why we do, why we don't. Sometimes they're financial. Sometimes they're just, I don't want to do any more school. I'm done. Sometimes we do things for personal reasons, and that's kind of my goal. My personal goal with my DNP is for personal reasons. It was just because of the fact that I want to be able to say that I have achieved the highest level of, highest degree, shall I say, in nursing, which is the terminal degree in nursing. And so, which is a doctoral degree, sorry, in nursing. So anyway, I don't want to hold you. This video is not going to be that long just because I want to just kind of put that out there. I'm expecting some backlash on that. It's perfectly okay because, like, again, as an educator, as a nurse educator, I have seen both sides. But this is something I just thought about. When it comes to how prepared these nurses are when they come out of school, I will say that the ADN students typically come out a little bit better prepared in the clinical aspect. And why is that? So if you think about a 2-year program, you spend majority of your time either in class or in clinical. And typically you're not taking classes, what I call fluff classes, or classes that you really don't need. Because that's kind of the point of the associate's degree, is to kind of get in, get out, and get going, get working. So with that being said, you're going to come out, because you typically spend more hours in clinical, and the BSN spends more hours in didactic, the actual theory part of it. So BSN students are stronger in theory, whereas ADN students are stronger in clinical in terms of the skills and how to do things. That has been my experience when I've been to different schools when it comes to the ADN and the BSN. I have taught it both, so I'm speaking from experience. Again, this is not 100%. You may be the exception to that rule, but that's typically how that goes. So at some point though, within 6 months to a year, they both meet in the middle, meaning that the ADN has gained that theory and the BSN has gained that skill set, that clinical base, and they happen to be really right at the same level. When I came out of school, my preceptor was a ADN graduate. She was phenomenal. When I tell you she knew things front, back, forth, she knew it. And I love that about her. Again, being a BSN prepared or baccalaureate prepared nurse, I learned tremendously from the ADN. I learned from LPNs. There's this LPN that we have that I know who's been an LPN for 40 years. And I will go to her 9 times out of 10 before I even go to some of the other nurses, because I'm like, she done been there, done that. It's her experience and her time that makes her valuable. She knows, she's been there, she's seen it. She's been a nurse as long as I've been alive. I'm only 40 and she has been nursing for 40 years at the same hospital, by the way. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share those things with you. If you have some comments, things that you believe or things that I may have missed, let me know. Put them in the comments below. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for watching this video. Please thumbs it up and subscribe below. Hit the notification bell so you know the next time that I upload a video. And if you are someone who's been here since December when I first started this channel, thank you, thank you, thank you for your continued support. I truly appreciate you. But until the next time, you all take care. Bye-bye.